The large ship hung in space above Earth. Its metal skin gleamed in the sunlight. It was 5 miles long and shaped like a spear. Smaller ships moved around it like bees around a hive. This was the main ship of the Kaloran Empire, and they had come to take Earth. Admiral Jackson Stone looked at the screen showing the alien ships. He was 55 years old with gray hair and a face that showed years of difficult choices. His blue uniform was neat and pressed, the 4 stars on, his shoulder catching the light as he moved. "How many ships do they have now?" he asked. Lisa Wright looked up from her computer. She was the communications officer on the USS Defiant, Earth's newest space carrier. Her dark hair was pulled back tightly, and her eyes never left the screen, as she answered. "We count 15 large warships and about 40 smaller attack craft, sir." Stone nodded. His ship was hidden behind the moon, watching the aliens who had arrived 3 weeks ago. The first message from the aliens had been simple and clear. Join the Galactic Empire or be destroyed. Earth's leaders had met for 2 days before sending their answer no. "Any movement from their landing ship, Wito?" Stone asked. Officer Ryan Miller checked his screen. He was young, only 28, but he was the best radar operator in the fleet. "Yes, sir. They're heading toward the moon base." Stone wasn't surprised. The Lunar Defense Station was the first place the aliens would attack. It protected Earth with its long-range weapons. If it fell, Earth would be open to direct attack. "Send a message to General Rodriguez. Tell her they're coming." Miller nodded and began typing the message. Stone walked to the large window at the front of the bridge. From here he could see Earth, a blue and green jewel against the blackness of space. He had been born in Iowa, in the middle of farm country. As a boy, he never imagined he would one day command a spaceship defending Earth from alien invaders. "Sir," Wright called from her station. "We're getting a message from the alien commander." Stone turned. "Put it on the main screen." The screen lit up, showing a face that wasn't human. The alien had purple-gray skin with small ridges running from its forehead to the back of its head. Its eyes were large and completely black with no visible pupils. When it spoke, its mouth moved strangely as if the words were difficult to form. "I am High Commander Zervaxis of the Kaloran Empire," the alien said. Its voice was deep and slightly mechanical through the translator. "You have refused our generous offer to join our civilization. This is unfortunate." Stone stepped forward. "This is Admiral Jackson Stone of Earth's United Defense Force. We have no interest in becoming part of your empire. We suggest you leave our solar system." The alien made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Your species is young and primitive. You have only recently discovered space travel. The Kaloran Empire has existed for 12,000 years. We have conquered over 2,000 worlds. Your resistance is meaningless." "We may be young," Stone replied, "but we're not as primitive as you think." "We have studied your weapons and technology," Zervaxis said. "You cannot win this fight." Stone smiled slightly. "There's something you should know about humans, Commander. We've been fighting wars against each other for our entire history. While you were conquering peaceful worlds, we were perfecting the art of war against ourselves. Now we finally have someone else to fight." The alien's expression didn't change. "Your confidence is misplaced. We will take your lunar base first, then your planet. Those who survive will serve the Empire." "We'll see about that," Stone said. He nodded to Wright, who cut the connection. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Then Miller spoke up. "Sir, the alien landing craft have increased speed. They'll reach the lunar base in 20 minutes. Stone turned to his second-in-command, Captain John Ellis. Ellis was tall and thin with dark skin and serious eyes. He had served with Stone for 8 years. "Captain, prepare our fighters. If the lunar base falls, we'll need to strike quickly." "Yes, sir," Ellis said, moving to carry out the order. Stone looked back at the screen showing the alien fleet. The Kalorans clearly expected an easy victory. They thought humans were just another primitive species to add to their collection. They were about to learn how wrong they were. On the moon, General Samantha Rodriguez checked her weapon one last time. She was 43, with short brown hair, and a scar across her right cheek from a training accident years ago. As commander of the Lunar Defense Station, She had spent the last 3 weeks preparing for this moment. "Status report," she said to the room of officers around her. Major Frank Collins looked up from his tablet. "All defense systems are ready. General, the new laser cannons are at full power. Underground bunkers are secure." Rodriguez nodded. "And the special surprise?" Collins smiled. "Ready to deploy on your command." "Good." Rodriguez turned to the large window overlooking the lunar surface. In the distance, she could see the Earth, peaceful and blue. "The aliens think we're easy. Pray because we're technologically behind them. They don't understand that technology isn't everything in war." She turned back to her officers. "The Kaelorans have conquered thousands of worlds, but they've never met humans before. Let's give them a proper welcome." An alarm began to sound. Captain Alan Morgan looked up from his station. "General, alien ships entering lunar orbit. Multiple landing craft detected." Rodriguez smiled. It wasn't a happy smile, but the smile of a predator seeing its prey approach. "Let them land. Remember, we want them to think they've got us outmatched. When the first wave is inside the base, we spring the trap." Her officers nodded. They all understood the plan. The aliens would learn that humans weren't like the other species they had conquered. Humans were fighters, survivors. They had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war against the most dangerous enemy of all, other humans. And now, those skills would be turned against the Kaeloran Empire. The first alien ships landed on the gray lunar surface, kicking up dust that settled quickly in the airless environment. Troops in advanced battle armor moved toward the base, their weapons ready. Inside the command center, Rodriguez watched them approach on the monitors. She picked up her radio. "All personnel, prepare for combat. Remember your training. These aliens may have better technology, but we have something they don't. We're human." She put down the radio and checked her own armor. The time for talking was over. The time for fighting had begun. The Kaeloran soldiers moved through the airlock of the lunar base. There were 30 of them in the first wave. Their armor was smooth and gray with glowing blue lines running across it. Each soldier carried a long gun that could turn a human to ash in seconds. The leader of the squad, Subcommander Vrex, checked his scanner. It showed the layout of the human base, but there were no life signs. This worried him. The humans should be here, defending their base. "Proceed with caution," he told his soldiers. "The humans may be hiding." The squad moved forward into the main corridor. It was empty. The lights were dim, running on emergency power. Their footsteps echoed in the silence. In a hidden room, deep, inside the base, General Rodriguez watched the aliens on her screens. She sat very still, hardly breathing. Beside her, Captain Morgan held a simple device in his hand. It wasn't connected to any computer. It was just a basic radio transmitter, with a single button. "Wait until they reach the main junction," Rodriguez whispered. "We want to catch as many as possible." Morgan nodded, his finger hovering over the button. On the screen, they watched the alien soldiers move deeper into the base. They passed through empty rooms and corridors, growing more confused with each step. "Where are the humans?" one of the soldiers asked Vrex. "Our intelligence said this base had 200 personnel. They must have retreated deeper inside," Vrex replied. "Keep moving." The squad reached the main junction where 4 corridors met in a large open area. Vrex raised his hand, signaling the squad to stop. "Something is wrong," he said. "This is too easy." In the hidden room, Rodriguez nodded to Morgan. "Now." Morgan pressed the button. There was no warning, no beeping countdown, no flashing lights, nothing that the aliens' advanced sensors could detect, just the simple electrical signal from the button to the explosives hidden in the walls, floor, and ceiling of the junction. The explosion ripped through the main junction. It wasn't a high-tech explosion. It was simple TNT, a technology humans had used for hundreds of years. Mixed with the explosives were thousands of small metal balls. In the enclosed space of the junction, they became deadly projectiles. The blast tore through the alien squad. Their advanced armor, designed to stop energy weapons, couldn't stop the simple physical force of the explosion and the metal balls traveling at high speed. 25 of the 30 aliens died instantly. Vrex was thrown against a wall, his armor cracked and broken. He tried to stand, but couldn't. Through his damaged helmet, he saw humans emerging from hidden doors around the junction. They wore simple armor and carried basic weapons. Nothing like the advanced equipment of the Kaloran forces. General Rodriguez stepped forward, a pistol in her hand. She looked down at Vrex. "Welcome to the moon," she said. Then she fired. Back on the USS Defiant, Admiral Stone received the message from the lunar base. "First wave eliminated, sir," Officer Wright reported. "General Rodriguez says the trap worked perfectly." Stone nodded. He wasn't surprised. The plan had been simple but effective. The aliens relied too much on their technology. They expected humans to use computers, sensors, and energy weapons like they did. They didn't expect something as basic as TNT and metal balls. "What about their second wave?" Stone asked. "Already launching from their ships," Miller replied, watching his radar. "Looks like they're sending a much larger force this time, at least 100 soldiers." "They're learning," Stone said. "Send a message to Rodriguez. Tell her Phase 2 begins now." On the lunar surface, the second wave of Kaloran troops approached the base with much more caution. They spread out using portable shield generators to protect themselves. Their commander, a senior officer named Krell, stayed back, directing the operation from a safe distance. "No direct assault this time," Krell ordered. "Use the heavy weapons to breach the walls. We'll enter from multiple points." The Kaloran soldiers set up large cannons that began firing at the base. Each shot melted through the thick metal walls, creating new entrances. Inside, Rodriguez watched the aliens on her screens. She wasn't worried. The lunar base had been built with multiple layers of walls and many hidden spaces. The layout the aliens had in their computers was fake, planted months ago when Earth first detected the approach of the Kaloran fleet. "They're breaking through the outer walls," Morgan reported. Rodriguez nodded. "Right on schedule. Are our people in position?" "Yes, General. All teams are ready." "Good." Rodriguez picked up her rifle. "Let's go meet our guests." The Kaloran troops entered the base through the holes they had made. They moved carefully, watching for traps. But there were no explosions this time. The corridors were empty and silent. Krell watched from outside, growing frustrated. "Where are they hiding? Scan deeper into the base." His tech officer tried but shook his head. "Something is blocking our scans. There's too much interference." What the aliens didn't know was that the walls of the base contained a special metal that blocked their scanners. It was a simple solution to a complex problem. The humans couldn't match the aliens' technology, so they found ways to make it useless. The Kaloran troops moved deeper into the base, following the corridors according to their maps. But the layout they found was different. Walls where there should be doors. Dead ends where there should be passages. They became lost in a maze designed to confuse them. And then the attack began. From hidden openings in the walls, floors, and ceilings, human soldiers appeared. They didn't use fancy energy weapons, they used simple guns with physical bullets. The Kaloran armor was designed to absorb energy, not stop solid objects moving at high speed. The aliens tried to fight back, but they were confused and separated in the maze-like corridors. Their advanced tactics relied on their technology, working properly. Without their scanners and with wrong maps, they were lost. In one corridor, Rodriguez led a squad of 10 soldiers against a group of trapped aliens. The humans moved with practiced efficiency, using the narrow space to their advantage. They knew every inch of the base. They had trained for this fight for weeks. "Press forward," Rodriguez shouted. "Don't give them room to regroup." The battle raged through the corridors of the lunar base for hours. The Kalorans had superior weapons and armor, but the humans had the home advantage and had prepared carefully. Outside, Commander Krell received confused and desperate messages from his troops. He couldn't understand what was happening. His species had conquered thousands of worlds. How could these primitive humans be defeating his soldiers? "Send in the third wave," he ordered, "and bring the heavy walkers." But it was already too late. Inside the base, the last of the second wave was falling to the human defenders. Rodriguez stood in the command center again, breathing hard from the fighting. Her armor was dented and scratched, but she was alive. Most of her soldiers were too. "Status report," she demanded. "Second wave eliminated, General," Morgan replied. "We lost 23 people. The aliens lost almost all of their 100 soldiers." Rodriguez nodded grimly. "They'll send more. And they'll be even more careful next time." She looked out the window at the Earth shining in the distance. The war had just begun, but humans had won the first battle. The Kyloran Empire was learning a hard lesson. Technology alone doesn't win wars. Humans had something the aliens didn't understand: the spirit of warriors who had fought countless battles against the toughest opponent of all, other humans. The Galactic Empire had never faced a challenge like Earth before. 3 months into what should have been a simple conquest, the mighty Kyloran fleet was damaged and confused. Emperor Zalthraz called an emergency meeting of his war council. On the Imperial homeworld, 20 light-years from Earth, the Imperial Palace was huge, with tall towers of gleaming metal that reached into the purple sky. In the main council chamber, Zalthraz sat on his throne, looking down at his generals. He was old, even by Kyloran standards, with pale gray skin and eyes that had seen 1,000 worlds fall to his empire. "Explain to me," the Emperor said, slowly, "why a single primitive planet continues to resist us." High Commander Zervaxis stood before his ruler, trying not to show his fear. Failure was not tolerated in the Empire. "Great Emperor," Zervaxis began, "these humans are different from other species we have conquered. They fight in ways we did not expect." "Be specific," the Emperor demanded. Zervaxis took a deep breath. "They use outdated technology in creative ways. They set traps instead of fighting directly. Their tactics are unpredictable. They sacrifice logical advantages for emotional reasons. Their military doctrine is chaotic." The Emperor leaned forward. "And yet they are defeating my ships, my soldiers, my empire." "Not defeating, Great Emperor. They have merely delayed us." 3 months of delay," Zalthraz shouted, his voice echoing in the chamber. 3 months, against a species that only achieved spaceflight a century ago. The room fell silent. The other generals and advisors looked down, not wanting to attract the Emperor's anger. After a moment, Zalthraz spoke again, his voice calmer. "What is different about these humans? Why can we not conquer them like the others?" An advisor stepped forward. She was small for a Kyloran, but known for her intelligence. "My Emperor, I believe I understand the problem. The humans have something no other species we've encountered possesses." "What is that?" the Emperor asked. "A history of constant warfare against themselves," she explained. "For thousands of years, they have fought and killed each other. Every tactic, every strategy we use, they have already used against themselves. They understand war in a way we do not." The Emperor considered this. "So they are natural warriors?" "Yes, my Emperor. And they are incredibly adaptive. When faced with superior technology, they find simple ways to counter it. When outnumbered, they use their environment to even the odds. They never fight the way we expect them to fight." In orbit around Earth, Admiral Susan Kelly commanded the human space fleet. It wasn't much of a fleet, just 30 ships cobbled together from various nations' space programs and hastily armed with weapons. But they had managed to destroy or damage over 20 Kyloran vessels in the past month using hit-and-run tactics. Kelly stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Orion. She was 50, with streaks of gray in her dark hair, and eyes that missed nothing. Before the invasion, she had commanded aircraft carriers for the U.S. Navy. Now she led Earth's defense in space. "Status report," she asked her bridge crew. Lieutenant Paul Davis looked up from his station. He was young, just 25, but had quickly learned to adapt naval tactics to space combat. "The Kyloran fleet remains in high orbit, Admiral. They haven't moved closer to Earth since our last attack." Kelly nodded. She walked to the main window, looking out at the stars. The alien ships were too far away to see with the naked eye, but she knew they were there, watching and waiting. "They're being cautious now," she said. "They've learned that we're not as easy to defeat as they thought." Commander George Rivera joined her at the window. "They still outnumber us, and their ships are still more powerful than ours." "True," Kelly agreed, "but numbers and power aren't everything in war. Humans have been naval commanders since we put the first logs in water. Space is just another ocean." Rivera smiled slightly. "I don't think the aliens understand that yet." "They're learning," Kelly said, "and that worries me. They've pulled back to regroup. That means they're planning something." Back on the Kaloran homeworld, the Emperor had made his decision. "Send the Imperial fleet," he told his war council. "All of it." Zervaxis looked shocked. "My Emperor, is that necessary? The Imperial fleet has not been deployed in full for over a century." "Exactly," Salthraz said. "These humans need to understand the true power of our empire. No more holding back, no more caution. We will crush them completely." The Imperial fleet was the pride of the Kaloran Empire. 200 massive warships, each one capable of destroying a moon. They had never been defeated. Most worlds surrendered as soon as they appeared. "It will take time to gather the fleet," Zervaxis said. 2 weeks at least. "Then do it quickly," the Emperor ordered. "I want Earth conquered before the end of their summer." In the Kansas Command Center, President Carter received the news from Earth's deep space monitoring stations. "We're detecting a massive buildup of Kaloran ships," the officer reported. "Far larger than anything we've seen before." Carter looked at Dr. Bennett, who stood nearby. "How many?" "Early estimates suggest around 200 ships," Bennett replied. "Much bigger than the ones we've faced so far." Carter's face showed no fear, but his voice was grim. "So they're bringing in reinforcements." "They're bringing in their main fleet," Bennett corrected. "What we fought so far was just their advance force." The president walked to the large map table that showed Earth and the surrounding space. Small lights indicated the positions of human and alien ships. "Soon, there would be many more alien lights. Can we win against so many?" he asked quietly. Bennett hesitated. "I don't know. Our defense grid can't affect that many ships at once, and Colonel Harris's fleet isn't large enough to take on their main force." "What about Admiral Kelly?" "Her ships are brave, but they're converted science vessels and space stations. They're not warships." Carter was silent for a moment. Then he straightened his shoulders. "Contact all our commanders. I want to meet with them in 1 hour. If the Kalorans are bringing their main fleet, we need to prepare our response." On her ship, Admiral Kelly received the president's message. She understood what it meant. The real war was about to begin. "They think they can overwhelm us with numbers," she told her bridge crew. "They still don't understand humans." Lieutenant Davis looked worried. "But Admiral, 200 ships? How can we fight so many?" Kelly smiled, but there was no humor in it. "The same way humans have always fought when outnumbered, Lieutenant, with courage, creativity, and the willingness to do whatever it takes to win." In his ship, High Commander Zervaxis watched as the Imperial fleet began to gather. Soon he would return to Earth with enough firepower to reduce the planet to ash. The humans had surprised him, had even defeated some of his ships, but they couldn't stand against the full might of the Kaloran Empire. Could they? For the first time in his long military career, Zervaxis felt a flicker of doubt. The humans were unpredictable. They didn't fight like any enemy he had faced before. What new surprises might they have waiting? He pushed the thought away. No matter what tricks the humans had planned, they couldn't possibly stand against 200 Imperial warships. Soon, Earth would fall, like every other world that had dared to resist the Empire. The final battle was about to begin. 1 month had passed since the Kalorans first attacked Earth. The aliens had expected a quick victory. Instead, they found themselves in a difficult war against an enemy who refused to give up. After the failure at the lunar base, the Kalorans had changed their strategy. They now attacked from orbit, bombing military bases in large cities. Millions of people had died, but Earth still fought back. Deep under the Pacific Ocean in a base hidden in the Marianas Trench, Colonel Joe Harris prepared for humanity's first major counterattack. The base was 7 miles below the ocean surface, too deep for the aliens to detect. Here, Earth had built a secret fleet of advanced submarines that could launch into space. Harris walked through the launch bay, checking the final preparations. He was 48 years old with a shaved head and a thick beard. Before the invasion, he had commanded the U.S. Navy's submarine forces. Now he led Earth's underwater fleet. "Are the ships ready?" Harris asked. Commander Beth Allen nodded. She was his second in command, a brilliant naval officer who had helped design the new submarines. "All 20 vessels are fueled and armed, sir. Crews are boarding now." Harris looked at the nearest submarine. It was unlike any underwater vessel built before. Its black hull was designed to absorb radar and sonar, but its most special feature was the ability to launch into space. The vessels were called Poseidons, half submarine, half spaceship. "The aliens control orbit," Harris said, "but they don't understand our oceans. They evolved on a dry world. They never learned to think in 3 dimensions the way our naval forces do." "That's our advantage," Allen agreed. "They're looking for threats from land bases. They won't expect an attack from underwater." Harris nodded. "Begin the launch sequence. Tell all captains to follow the battle plan exactly." Allen moved away to carry out his orders while Harris continued to the command center. There, on large screens, he could see the positions of the Kaloran ships in orbit. There were fewer, now. Many had been damaged or destroyed by Earth's defenses, but still enough to devastate the planet if the counterattack failed. In the Kansas Underground Command Center, Dr. Olivia Bennett watched the same screens. She was 39, with long red hair tied back and glasses that couldn't hide her tired eyes. She hadn't slept properly in weeks, working day and night on Earth's planetary defense grid. "The Poseidon fleet is preparing to launch," said President William Carter, who stood beside her. He was tall and thin, his face showing the strain of leading Earth during its darkest hour. Bennett nodded. "The defense grid is ready. As soon as the fleet engages the aliens, I'll activate it." The defense grid was Bennett's creation. It used Earth's natural magnetic field, amplified by hundreds of generators around the planet. The Kalorans had ignored it, thinking it was too primitive to be a weapon. They were wrong. "Will it work?" Carter asked quietly. "In theory," Bennett replied. "We've never tested it at full power. It could disable their ship's systems for several minutes, maybe longer." "That will have to be enough," Carter said. "Colonel Harris and his fleet will only get one chance." Under the Pacific Ocean, the Poseidon fleet prepared to launch. Each submarine carried 40 crew members and enough weapons to destroy 3 alien ships. They weren't as advanced as the Kaloran vessels, but they had the element of surprise. Harris sat in the command chair of the lead submarine, the USS Neptune. He felt the familiar vibration as the engines powered up. Around him, his crew worked at their stations, their faces serious but determined. "All vessels report ready, sir," Allen said from her station. Harris took a deep breath. "Begin launch sequence." The floor of the ocean opened up, revealing launch tubes big enough for the submarines. One by one, the Poseidons entered the tubes. Huge doors closed behind them, and the tubes were drained of water. Then, with a roar that shook the ocean floor, the submarines blasted upward. They moved faster than any submarine had ever moved before, shooting toward the surface like giant bullets. When they hit the air, special shields activated around them, protecting them from the heat of atmospheric exit. In orbit, the Kaloran fleet detected the launches too late. They were looking for threats from known military bases. They weren't watching the empty ocean. "Unknown vessels approaching from the planet's surface," reported a Kaloran officer on their command ship. Rising from the ocean, 20 ships moving fast. High Commander Zervaxis turned in surprise. "Ocean launches? Impossible. Our intelligence says the humans have no such capability." But the screens didn't lie. 20 human vessels were rapidly approaching the Kaloran fleet. In the Kansas Command Center, Bennett watched the submarines break atmosphere. "They're in space," she told the president, "activating the defense grid now." She pressed her hand against a scanner, and the massive system came to life. Around the planet, hundreds of generators powered up, amplifying Earth's magnetic field. A wave of invisible energy swept outward from the planet. In orbit, the Kaloran ships suddenly lost power. Their lights flickered and died. Their weapons went offline. Their engines stopped. They floated helplessly in space. "What's happening?" Zervaxis demanded. "Get our systems back online." "We can't," his officer replied. "Some kind of electromagnetic pulse. It's like nothing we've seen before." On the USS Neptune, Harris watched as the alien fleet drifted powerless before them. The defense grid had worked even better than expected. Now it was their turn. "All vessels, attack pattern Alpha," Harris ordered. "Target their main weapons and engines first." The Poseidon fleet spread out. Each submarine turned spaceship selecting its targets. They fired missiles that connected with the helpless Kaloran ships. Explosions blossomed in the silence of space. For 8 minutes, the humans attacked without resistance. They destroyed 5 of the largest Kaloran warships and damaged many others. It was the first major victory for Earth in the war. Then, as Bennett had warned, the defense grid's effect began to fade. The alien ships slowly regained power. "Grid effect diminishing," Allen reported. "Alien ships powering up." Harris nodded. "All vessels returned to Earth. Mission accomplished." The Poseidon fleet turned and dove back toward the planet. Behind them, the damaged Kaloran fleet struggled to regroup. In the Kansas Command Center, Bennett watched the submarines return. She allowed herself a small smile. "It worked," she said to the president. "We hurt them." Carter nodded. "For the first time, we took the fight to them. But this is just the beginning." He looked at the main screen, which showed the remaining alien ships. There were still many of them, but now they were moving away from Earth, putting more distance between themselves and the planet. "They're retreating to a higher orbit," Bennett observed. "They're afraid of the defense grid." "They should be," Carter said. "They keep looking for complex technology, but sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective." In his ship, High Commander Zervaxis watched Earth grow smaller as his fleet retreated to a safer distance. For the first time since the invasion began, he felt uncertain. The humans were not behaving like any species the Kaloran Empire had conquered before. "Send a message to the Emperor," he ordered. Tell him the humans are proving more difficult than expected. We may need reinforcements." The officer nodded and moved to send the message. Zervaxis continued to stare at the blue planet. The humans had surprised him again. They used old, simple technology in ways his people had never considered. They fought, with a determination he had never seen. The war was far from over. But for the first time, Zervaxis wondered if the mighty Kaloran Empire had finally met its match. 6 months had passed since the Kalorans first appeared in Earth's skies. The war had been hard, cities lay in ruins, millions had died. But Earth still stood, unbowed and unbroken. The Imperial fleet had arrived 2 months ago. 200 massive warships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humans had seen before. They had expected Earth to surrender at the sight of such overwhelming force. Earth had not surrendered. Instead, the nations of the world had united as never before. Old enemies became allies. Every factory made weapons. Every scientist worked on new ways to fight. Every soldier, sailor, and pilot fought with desperate courage. And slowly, incredibly, the humans had pushed the invaders back. In the White House Situation Room, President Carter sat with his War Council. The room was simple now, with most of the fancy furniture removed to make space for more maps and computer screens. Carter looked tired. His face was thinner, his hair grayer than 6 months ago. But his eyes were clear and determined. "What's the current status?" he asked. General Rodriguez, now in charge of all Earth's ground forces, spoke first. "The aliens have been driven out of North America and most of Europe. They still hold parts of Asia and Africa, but we're making progress there too." Admiral Kelly, her uniform wrinkled from too many hours on duty, pointed to the large screen showing space around Earth. "We've destroyed or disabled 63 of their ships. They've pulled the rest back to a higher orbit." "And our losses?" Carter asked quietly. Kelly's face grew sad. Heavy, Mr. President, we've lost 40% of our fleet. The submarine carriers have been hit particularly hard. Carter nodded. He had expected this. Dr. Bennett, what about the defense grid? Bennett looked up from her tablet. Her red hair was cut short now for practicality. The grid is holding, sir. We've improved it to the point where it can disable their ships for up to 20 minutes at a time. But it takes a lot of power. We can only activate it once every 3 days. The president was silent for a moment, thinking. Then he turned to Colonel Harris. What about the special project? Is it ready? Harris nodded. His beard was now streaked with gray. Ready, sir. We finished the last tests yesterday. It works. Good, Carter said. Then it's time to end this war. He stood up and walked to the main screen. The Kaylorans came here expecting an easy victory. They thought we were primitive, weak. They've learned differently. Now it's time for them to learn the final lesson about humanity. His advisors nodded. They all understood the plan. It was dangerous. But after 6 months of war, they were willing to take the risk. On the Imperial command ship, Emperor Zalthraz himself had arrived to take personal control of the war. This had never happened before in the history of the Kayloran Empire. But then, no world had ever resisted this long. The Emperor stood on the bridge of his massive vessel, looking down at the blue planet. His patience was gone. His pride was wounded. He wanted Earth crushed completely and finally. Prepare all ships for the final attack, he ordered. No more holding back. Destroy their cities, burn their farms, break their will to fight. Hi, Commander Zervaxis hesitated. My Emperor, the humans have proven very resilient. Perhaps we should consider... Consider what? Zalthraz snapped. Retreat? Negotiation? The Kayloran Empire does not retreat. We do not negotiate. We conquer. Zervaxis bowed his head. Yes, my Emperor. As the Imperial fleet prepared to attack, a message came from Earth. It was on all frequencies, impossible to ignore. Put it on. Screen, the Emperor ordered. The screen lit up, showing President Carter. He stood tall, his expression calm but determined. Emperor Zalthraz, Carter said. This is President William Carter of Earth. For 6 months our worlds have been at war. Millions have died on both sides. It's time for this to end. The Emperor laughed. I agree. Surrender your planet and the killing will stop. Carter shook his head. That's not the kind of ending I meant. You came to Earth thinking we would be easy to conquer. You were wrong. But there's something you still don't understand about humans. And what is that? Zalthraz asked. The forces you've faced so far represent less than 10% of our military capabilities. We haven't even sent our full army yet. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. You lie. Our intelligence has monitored all your military forces. No, Carter said. You've seen what we wanted you to see. Behind him stood Earth's military leaders, General Rodriguez, Admiral Stone, Colonel Harris, Admiral Kelly, and Dr. Bennett. They all looked confident, unafraid. As we speak, Carter continued, 50 of our stealth vessels are positioning themselves around your fleet. Each one carries a weapon that can disable your ships permanently. Not destroy, disable. Because, unlike you, we don't want unnecessary death. On the Imperial ship's sensors, previously invisible human vessels suddenly appeared surrounding the Kayloran fleet. They were small, but carried strange devices pointed at the alien ships. This is your only warning, Carter said. Withdraw from our solar system, or we will be forced to use these weapons. Then we will come for your empire. Not to conquer it, but to free those you have enslaved. The Emperor was speechless for a moment. Then anger took over. You dare threaten the Kayloran Empire? We have conquered thousands of worlds. And that's your weakness, Carter replied calmly. You've never had to really fight before. Most worlds surrendered easily. You've forgotten what real war is like. Humans haven't. We've been fighting each other for our entire history. Now we're united against you. In the silence that followed, an officer approached the Emperor and whispered something in his ear. Zalthraz's expression changed from anger to concern. Our long-range scans have detected hundreds more human ships hiding in their asteroid belt, the officer had told him, and thousands of smaller vessels on the far side of their moon. We didn't see them before because they were powered down. Emperor looked back at the screen, at the human president who stood so calmly before him. Was it possible? Had the Empire truly underestimated these humans so badly? I will give you 24 hours to begin your withdrawal, Carter said. After that we will act. The choice is yours, peace or defeat. The screen went dark. On Earth, Carter turned to his advisors. Do you think they believed it? Harris smiled. Slightly. The 50 ships are real enough. The rest? He shrugged. Sometimes the threat of force is more powerful than force itself, General Rodriguez said, especially when your enemy already fears you. They all knew the truth. Earth had indeed been holding back some forces, saving them for this moment, but not nearly as many as they had claimed. The ships in the asteroid belt were mostly decoys. The vessels behind the moon were small and only lightly armed. But the Kaelorans didn't know that. After 6 months of constant surprises from the humans, they had learned to fear what they didn't understand. In his ship, Emperor Zalthraz faced the hardest decision of his long rule. Continue the war against these strange, unpredictable humans? Or retreat for the first time in the history of the Empire? The humans had proved stronger than expected, more resourceful, more willing to fight and die for their freedom. And now, they claimed to have held back their main forces, saving them until this moment. Could he risk the destruction of the Imperial fleet on the chance that the humans were bluffing? As the Emperor contemplated his options, a new term entered the vocabulary of the Galactic Empire: human diplomacy, the art of making your enemy believe you are stronger than you really are.